Hi, I'm Hsing-ay, artist in residence at All Angels Church, and this is John Schmidt, who is the current associate priest, but also the interim priest in charge during the pandemic, which was a big surprise to you. So, welcome to New York.
Thank you. Kind of grateful for the trial by fire. It's a little bit of a rough introduction to the city, but I feel like as the city's come back to life and as we've been able to kind of gather back together as a church, it's actually been, I'm grateful for the time of learning how to rethink church, reimagine community, and then finally gather back in this space as a church again. When I showed up, we were still doing online church, and I didn't get to meet people face to face for really almost 2 years. So people knew me on the screen, which was very uncomfortable for me because I like to meet people face to face. And then finally, I feel like we're able to do the work of in-person community again, which feels like a relief.
Well, I think it really takes a creative spirit to jump into a role coming from somewhere else and just be able to flow with it. And I think it's really cool that you have a background as a visual artist, and we want to talk about this beautiful art installation.
It was definitely a composite work. So the artists were also Seth Little and Kylee Pastore, and we had a really fun time doing a collab on this project. I think one day, maybe about a month ago, I went to Seth and said, we should really do some type of installation for Advent that's going to bring people into this special 4-week season that leads up to Christmas and is really kind of a sensory moment of deep contemplation and listening, and it really invites you, I think, in body and spirit into this kind of in this moment of approaching God, looking, noticing, spending time, trying to find the inbreaking of God's kingdom. And so we started thinking about, I kind of drawn a rough sketch of wanting to do some type of large like draping fabric that was going to kind of pull towards the cross. And I kind of had it coming down on each end and then from the top and from the bottom. And then Seth had this idea, well, maybe we can just kind of taper it and really center the focus in the cross and have everything kind of coming from that middle, kind of radiating out. And then over time we played with ideas of yarn or different types of fabric, and then we eventually kind of settled on doing a thread-based work. In that you have something that's quite delicate, but when you scale it up, it feels warm and tactile, and you're able to kind of experience it a little more, less like a uniform piece, although it presents as that, but you can kind of engage with it, I think, in a little more of a homey way that feels like it's more familiar as opposed to like one piece of color or fabric. So we talked about that for a while. We kind of drew a mock-up, and we realized it would be fun to get some more hands in on this type of installation, and also knowing that it was going to be probably relatively labor-intensive. And we didn't really know exactly how we wanted to rig it. So we brought in Kylee, who's done a number of installations before, and we were able to think up this kind of centerpiece, which is actually like a PVC pipe that's been cut on and that we've been able to kind of manipulate, so you're able to fix the thread and tie it around and kind of pull it tight, which really creates that like central unity, so the threads kind of radiate from the cross. And then we installed long 2x4s, basically spanning the entire wall with 60 nails, and each one kind of angled in. And then we did the kind of the painstaking process of setting up 2 big ladders and having the 3 of us just take a single piece of thread on a long spool with a bunch of different colors and just running it back and forth. So there's a number of different small spools that are maybe about yay big. And so we oriented the colors in a gradient. So we kind of set up the gradient that we wanted to have for this, the 2 layers. There's a Christmas layer and there's an Advent layer. And so we did the Christmas layer first, which is in the back, which has this type of like prismatic gradient. And this is, to represent kind of God's kingdom. When the light catches it, it's really kind of radiates and glows and shines, and it's quite beautiful and warm, which is obstructed by this Advent layer on the front, which is kind of these Advent colors, blue and purple, which in some ways like a veil, which in many ways is how we as a world live. We kind of see things veiled, it's a little dimly lit, and so we're looking for learning how to notice and train our eyes to see the inbreaking of God's kingdom. So when light comes through the back, you're able to still see and discern this warm glow, all radiating from the cross, obviously because our light comes from this incarnation in Jesus. And so from that, you spend time looking, and as the light shifts throughout the room and throughout the day, you can see different colors, you can notice different moments that are particularly vibrant, other moments that are kind of dim and subdued. And so it gives you this play of what it looks like throughout the day to really recognize elements of light and how that, how those colors and how the inbreaking of that light can be representative of the larger body of Christ in our humanity, but also just in God's kind of cosmic world.
Great.
Yeah. I think what's also really fun about this work is that Seth and Kylee and I, obviously did this installation together and had a lot of conversation about what we all thought it meant. And when we finished it, I realized that I started to draw a different meaning from it than maybe like say Seth did. And so now we kind of debate what we think it means. And so I think that's kind of the fun work of what art does, is that it allows for this conversation where people don't always agree and you can have different takes on it. And I think as people have encountered it, I kind of have given an explanation, Seth has given an explanation, Kylie's given an explanation, and they're all slightly different. And so I think they complement each other in that, but people are able to kind of draw their own meaning as well.
What are the variations?
His take is a little more of a cosmic, God's kingdom is everywhere to be discerned and to train these eyes of noticing and seeing. And while I completely agree with that, I've come to really appreciate this back layer, this Christmas layer, this really colorful layer, as really representative of a full kind of spectrum humanity that we find in the incarnation in Jesus, which is kind of this reimagined, renewed, remade humanness in Christ. And I think it shines really brilliantly, and we can see that in one another, but sometimes it's hard to see that in one another. Sometimes it's hard to see that in the world. And so for me, it's become a little more anthropological. It's like more focused on people. I think for Seth, it's more potentially, I hope I'm representing you, Seth, well, it's more of like the inbreaking of kingdom throughout eternity, and the way that it is a little more of a cosmic scale.
That's great.